always I have to pull it over. Veronica or Rod, you could tell me if it's on the correct screen. Sometimes it's on the wrong screen.
All right, everyone, welcome. We're going to get started in just a second. I'm going to show you a short video and then we'll introduce the speakers and get started.
Program for pre-medical students at community colleges and universities, with the hope of guiding the next generation of diverse and inclusive physicians.
And while we advertise our organization as being for community college students, our events are open to anyone.
We realize that finding guidance and mentorship in a pre-med journey can be especially challenging for first-generation pre-med students,
people that lack the financial resources, or just those who do not know people in the medical field.
One of the best parts about our events is that they are virtual, so you can do it from the comfort of your own home.
We typically have events on Fridays from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and on Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 12:30 Pacific Standard Time.
If you aren't able to attend the event, all of our sessions are uploaded on our YouTube channel.
Many of our sessions will end up with a Q&A with the speakers.
Any questions that you have, you may put it in the Q&A session on Zoom, and our team members will read them and have them answer.
After you have attended our event, you can log into our website and complete the quiz, which will contain questions pertaining to our session today.
If you score 70% or higher on the quiz, you will be awarded a certificate to show that you attended our session today.
If you want to stay connected with the upcoming events or just want to tell your pre-med friends about the Pre-Med CC, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok as @PremedCC.
Hello, welcome. My name is Veronica, and today I have the pleasure of introducing two deans representing the University of Arizona College of Medicine, Phoenix, and the University of South Dakota Sanford School of Medicine. I'll introduce Dr. Fogarty first. As Associate Dean of Admissions and Recruitment, Glenn Fogarty, PhD, MBA, oversees all aspects of the college's professional MD and dual degree admission processes. He also guides the implementation of high school and college outreach activities, community and school partnerships, as well as the development of robust recruitment program for diverse and talented students. In addition to his role as Associate Dean, Dr. Fogarty is an assistant professor in bioethics and medical humanism, directs the MD MBA program, and serves as a co-block director for the medical school's first course, Introduction to Medicine. Welcome, Dr. Fogarty. Next, I have the honor of introducing Dr. Manzira. Pasquale Manzira, PhD, is the Assistant Dean of Medical Student Affairs and Admissions at the University of South Dakota Sanford School of Medicine. He has been in this position for the past 8 years and has been involved with medical admissions and education over the past 19 years. At the national level, Dr. Manzira is a member of the Association of American Medical Colleges, AAMC, American Medical College Application Service, AMCAS AMCAS Advisory Committee. He has also served as a member at large in the AAMC Central Group on Student Affairs. Welcome both, and thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And you want us to take it from here, Veronica?
Yes, please.
Excellent. I will share slides, and then you guys stay on screen to make sure that I'm getting it to the right area. So we'll go there, share, and
hey, we see it.
Excellent. And I just want the whole slideshow. There you go. Now, are you seeing the presentation or the next slide?
The right side. Yeah, we see both.
Okay, so I need to flip those. So I do this, and I gotta bring it over. That's the difficult part for me. Oh yeah, you do it up here, right? There's a display and swap presenter mode. There we go. Now I have it.
Yes.
You got it.
Perfect.
All right, my friends. So yeah, welcome and good evening. We appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Your organization, absolutely fantastic. I've been lucky enough to present for a few times with you guys on various topics, and Jobin brought up this idea of us where Dr. Manzera and I, but I'll call him Pat probably for the rest of the night. We are both on the AMCAS Advisory Committee, so that medical school application. I've been on it for 5 years now. Pat's just joining on us this past year, but we've both been collaborating inside our medical school world, inside our missions world for multiple years. As you heard, him there 8 years, me 7 years now, and we've really enjoyed kind of helping build this I don't know, national application, this audience, just helping educate on this process. So that's what our goal was tonight, was for us to kind of walk through with you guys what the MCAS application's like, some of the things that we see that we just think, maybe some suggestions we want to give you just to kind of be thinking about out there to kind of help you as you prepare. And we have a ton of resources for you. So our time together tonight, we're going to take a minute and introduce each of our medical schools, and then past that, share those resources that we have for you. And then, like I said, we're going to try and get specific on a couple little areas that'll really allow you to start preparing tonight as you're thinking about medical school. And then we want to leave plenty of time for questions and answers as you go through this process. So with that, I want us to go over our two medical schools. And I had this slide built out, and there was a thought behind this too. As you're deciding on where to apply to medical school, I want you to know every medical school has a story. Every medical school wants to serve their community. And I think we really work hard to tell that story in so many different ways. And a lot of them is just like tonight when both Pat and I say hello to you. But it's in the websites. As you're deciding, make sure you go in there and start digging deep into those websites, start to decide where you want to apply, who you are, because you could really start to see that kind of match, and it really puts a focus on that area. So as Dr. Manzera and I present right now, see if you can start hearing a story and get an idea of what it looks like to be at South Dakota. If it was here in Arizona, or you start doing those other homeworks in those other schools, it might help you as well. So I think we got South Dakota first. So Pat, you take it from here.
Great, thank you. So it's an honor to be asked to serve on this session here and help all of you hopefully get into a medical school somewhere. So as I was mentioned, I'm the Assistant Dean of Medical Affairs and Mission at the University of South Dakota Sanford School of Medicine. So I just want to emphasize, so we are a national award-winning community-based medical school with multiple campuses and clinical training sites. And I'm not mentioning some of these awards just to kind of show off, but part of this process that I'm telling the story of our school is actually to tell you a similar story that all schools have. They have a mission. They have a reason of why they are the school that they are and where they are and what they have to do. So if you look at the two awards we won, so in 2013, we were the recipient of the AAMC Shining Educational Innovation Award for an ambulatory program. That's now called the Longitudinal Integrated Clerkship, or CLIC nationally. So what that is, I'll just explain it a little bit, is normally when you go into your clerkship training, you'll do your rotations of 6 to 8 weeks peds, 6 to 8 weeks surgery, 6 to 8 weeks, OBGYN. At our school, or in this type of system, longitudinal integrated clerkship, you do all 7 of those disciplines at the same time over a whole year period. So you might have all day Monday where you're in surgery, Tuesday morning you might be doing internal medicine, and so forth. So that's the model that we actually developed back in 1997, and actually Harvard came to our school to look at that model initially, and we've now have expanded that to all of our campuses across. So that's a rather unique model and a unique curriculum. So that requires us to look at certain characteristics of applicants that we feel will able to navigate our curriculum correctly. And that's going to be true across different schools. And so it's a really self-directed learning system. And so we're looking for applicants that demonstrate self-directed learning. So when we're looking at AMCAS applications, those are the types of things that we're looking for. And that's true for many schools, you know, and part of the process is trying to find out what the curriculum is like. On the left, and back in 2017, we received the AAMC Spencer Foreman Award for Standing Community Service. And so that's the national conference we have in November. That's our former Dean Edelman there, who accepted the award, asked us to all come up on stage. So it felt like the Academy Awards, going up there and receiving it. And I'll just make my joke now. I'm here on the far left side there. One of my proudest moments, I still fit in my wedding suit. And I only got married about 10 years ago, but still that was a proud moment for me. Of course, with COVID, I think I put on the COVID-15. I don't know if I can do that now. But the emphasis I want to make here is a couple of points. One, even the small schools or the state schools can be great schools for you to consider. And sometimes people are focusing on some of the bigger or name brand schools. Really look at schools and see what schools are a good fit for you. You want to broaden your search and give a lot of the smaller schools a chance to see if they're a good fit for you. Now, we have a focus on South Dakota residents and significant ties, but a lot of state schools are like that. The second thing I want you to notice about this slide is, so I talked a little bit about our curriculum and we're looking for certain characteristics of students. We won a national award for outstanding community service. So that should tell you that community service is a very important part of our school, right? So you should look at your AMCAS application. Do I meet the mission of the school, right? Do they want a lot of community service, things like that? That's something we look for in our applicants, whether it's medically related, non-medically related. We rely on our community to help train our students. We have a frontier and rural medicine program we call a farm program. We actually send 1 or 2 of our students to a small town of 10 to 15,000 for about 10 months during their clerkship training to train, you know, and part of that process is also for our community to want us to graduate students that'll practice in that community. So that's what this slide is about, just to kind of do that. So the next slide there, Glenn. So here's our mission. You could read our mission. Basically, you know, we're a state school, so we do emphasize state residency in our criteria. We're primary care, so family medicine, especially people served in a family living in medically underserved areas. So if you just process the next, and you can see that we mean it. I mean, this is our mission fit. So we ranked, if you look at the AAMC mission management tools that we look at, we ranked 100th percentile for graduates practicing in rural area, 98th percentiles for graduates training in family medicine, 99th percentile for experience in health disparities. So we try to give our students a great experience with health disparities in our state, and 100% for experience in cultural awareness in areas. So we have 9% of our population is Native American. We make sure our students are involved in those communities. We have a Hutterite community close to our school. We do that. So this is me saying, look at the mission of whatever schools you're applying to. Do I fit that mission, right? So the AMCAS application is very general for the most part, although you can be pretty specific in the experience section. The secondary application is going to be very important that you demonstrate your mission fit. Most questions on a secondary are really our way of determining, are we a good mutual fit? You know, so that's one of the things I wanted to emphasize there. And the last slide, Glenn. So this is not important, but this is the journey of a medical school. And I show this is our 3-pillar curriculum. We have 3 phases. We have a shortened pre-clerkship. We have our pillar 2 is our clerkship phase. And then our pillar 3 phase is like a 4th year. But you can see the path, a long winding road. There's going to be a lot of that happening in med school, ups and downs. So we use our curriculum and what we're looking for to help us decide on applicants, look at applicants and their attributes, what they've done, are they a good fit for our school? And so that's the point I want to make. And if you just advance, so basically we in all medical schools are looking for applicants who can successfully navigate our curriculum, our programs. And so that's one of the I'd like to demonstrate and today and hopefully get across. So go ahead, next to you.
Perfect. And yeah, this is a fabulous fabulous slide. I haven't seen this before until we were just getting our presentation together, but it is so apt of what the journey you will follow. It is not a straight path. There's so many ups and downs and curves and thoughts and confidence and not confidence and believe yourself and don't believe yourself. But guess what? You will also get there. We have the resources at the vast majority of these schools just to help you navigate this crazy path. But if you want it, you will find a way to walk that path, and that's why we're trying to help tonight. So for us, College of Medicine Phoenix, we're in downtown Phoenix here. The University of Arizona is 100 miles south of us, down in Tucson. But 15 years ago, we were the 5th largest city in the country without a medical school. And so we started a satellite campus up here, and we've been separately accredited for 10 years. We're both University of Arizona, but it's 2 separate colleges, 2 separate admissions, 2 separate accreditations. But with that, again, we're filling a mission as well. So we, for us, if this works right here, so downtown Phoenix, but this is our Phoenix Biomedical Campus right here. Then you can see another view of it from, this is looking west. This is for us looking north. And this is us kind of looking south. Here's where the D-backs play. That's where the Suns are playing the Clippers right now. So it's fun. But yes, we're still a very young medical school and doing some amazing things out here. And we're really excited on what we accomplish. So for us, we call it the personalized education. So we are really trying to do, and most medical schools follow a path. How Pat was kind of presenting that, but your first 2 years of medical school, we have 2 block directors for everything. We do Oregon-based system, but we put an MD and a PhD in there. So we got the theory, but we also have the practice in anything we're doing. I think really well renowned in our doctoring course for us to go out there. We have Creighton Medical School has a satellite campus in our town. Mayo has a satellite campus in our town. And we always hear our residents always want to work with our doctors because, I think our doctoring gets them that well prepared early on, which we absolutely love. We reinforce all that first 2 years. Every time you're finishing a course or every other week, you're going out and working with a preceptor, which is a physician out in the community in some kind of family medicine area. But again, it's just reinforcing everything you're learning in the classroom. We do allow you to personalize. We call it the PAL block, but during your first 2 years, we let you customize your curriculum in the areas that you're interested in. So if you're working on that next line, that scholarly project, every one of our students get a scholarly project done here. You could be working on that. You could go to a rural location. You could be working with a physician that you think you already have an interest in specialty-wise. We allow you to personalize that, which we absolutely love. 3rd and 4th year, you're out there in that clinical environment even more. We do have longitudinal patient care where you can have we have 8 clerkships, but you could do 5 of them at a rural site. And so you can see that longitudinal care of a patient, which we absolutely love. You're still working on that scholarly project. We love it. I think there's only about a half dozen medical schools across the country that ask for this kind of project, but it allows you, when you come to residency, really separate yourself because you're talking about a poster, you're talking about being published, you're talking about this extra research because you're going to have to be a lifelong learner. And so we're giving you the tools to do that. And then we have ways for you to specialize your education. Again, we have 5 certificates of distinction. You can do multiple of those over those 4 years. We do have dual degree programs as well. Like I said, I'm overseeing the MD, MBA one as well. So a lot of ways for you guys to really, articulate who you are and get that kind of skills and those necessary to be the best physician you want to be out there. And then for us, we did a little bit different than Tucson. Tucson, you got your medical school and then you walk across a bridge and you're in their teaching hospital. But for us, when we came up here, we became the base of the Phoenix Biomedical Campus. And we work with 9 clinical partners. So we definitely have a mile and a half from us. And we were just over there this afternoon called Banner University Medical Center. It's our main teaching hospital. But you can also see we're working with a children's hospital. We're working with the VA. We're out there in the Mayo. Valleywise is our county hospital, other different partners around the valley. But what we love about that is it allows you to see different patient populations. And so when you want to be that undifferentiated physician down the road, we think it's invaluable to see all these different kind of areas. understand all these different kind of hospitals and the systems and the computer systems that we can, and the type of patients they work with. Really different, what you would see at, thank you, a county hospital versus Mayo with, really specialty care. So it's really valuable for you to have those kind of experiences. So a unique model for us, but we did it on purpose because we, like I said, we're two different medical schools in the same U of A umbrella, but we really enjoy what we're accomplishing. So that's our hello. But I want to get into the resources. And when we were talking about building out this presentation, we thought about actually opening up an app and showing some things that people need to work on. But then we said, no, let's just really share the resources that we have. We'll go into a couple of things, and Pat and I tonight will share some of our best practices with you. And then we just wanted to give you tools that you could kind of walk forward with. And so, like I said, tonight, you could already be thinking about how to apply it to medical school. The one thing that we did do for you, and we'll share this to you afterwards, whether it's this presentation or an email, I'll let Jobin figure out how he can get all this information to you. But we built out this multiple resources. I actually reached out to the person that helps us run that AMCAS, the American Medical College application service that helps build that and works with our committee. And they gave us all these different resources. So everything is built out for you, every step that you need to do to think about how to apply to medical school and be prepared. So there's this applicant guide. I'll show you a couple examples of that. There's a workbook where you guys could actually go in and start filling out an AMCAS application before you even have to start it. You can't upload this one, unfortunately, but you can start practicing, starting seeing what the whole application to be about, which is a great tool for you. So as you're getting ready for that application system, you can see if I have anything I need to go do before I'm actually applying. I think it's fantastic. You could articulate and with the work and activities book, and we'll show you all that type of experiences that you could kind of note. And then just some wonderful things that we've worked on, Pat and I have worked on as being AMCAS Advisory Committee. So we've just recently changed the disadvantage question and made it a lot more easier for people, we hope, knock on wood, for you guys to understand whether you want to be noting that work or not. We've also did this new experience section. Both Pat and I were on this work, but there was 18 experiences that you guys could list, but now there's 19 this next year because we added the social justice advocacy question. So all of those resources will be with you. So there's 5. And then we got another 5 for you. So the frequent asked questions, the course classification guide, so you can understand where your courses fit and how you articulate them. The applicant website, so just so you know exactly where to go to fill this out. The fee assistance program, so it is, thank you, applying to medical school, going to medical school. It's not inexpensive, but you might qualify for this as well. And so, absolutely something, if you could take advantage of it, you want to do that. And then protocols and policies, just the rules and regs of everything. That's probably the one you don't have to worry about the most unless you need to resource out. But we wanted to share all of these resources with you. So we'll make sure that gets to you in one clean area. And this way it'll just allow you to be that best and most prepared as you walk into the cycle and applying to medical school. So I talked about that first one, and this is the AMCAS applicant guide. So for us, here we're looking at a whole bit different ways for you to apply. 94 pages of information. Probably overwhelming to you, but what I really did is I just clicked the first and the last. Because what this resource guide is going to do, it's going to show you how you can prepare your application to be submitted, how the application is actually processed, and then how it's delivered. So the whole cycle of your application, you could take a weekend and just fan through this packet, or, thank you, it'll be online, and just kind of go through this. But I think one of the most invaluable things for you right here are the resources, and they list it right there, all the different ways that you can connect. And that phone call center is amazing, how many things they process and how many questions. I know you call, a credit card center, or you call an airline, and, thank you, you're online for your hold for 2 hours. These guys have a huge resource center available for you. So you actually do get to talk to a person, and they actually get to help you through this process. So we'll send you the link to that area, and it should really give you a good idea of what it takes, to kind of just go through this process. But this, Pat and I tonight, we're going to give you the one-stop shop, but then all of those resources are available for you. So that guide's right there. But I also want Dr. Manzera right here just to kind of go forward into this workshop into the workbook here too, because I think it's invaluable information right there. Because like I said, you can start doing your homework tonight on being prepared to apply to medical school. So Pat, you want to take through this little walkthrough a little?
Yeah, I'll start off as some of you may know, I don't know how many here may be a reapplicant or not, but the AMCAS application, I call it a bear of an application. There's a lot of work that goes into it. I would say start early, and take good care. You don't want to submit a sloppy application. That's one of the things we've noted sometimes from applicants is just a lot of little mistakes, missing sections of the AMCAS application or a lot of spelling errors. So this is a good way to get started to build that so that when you come time to actually do your application, it's much easier. And when I give pre-med talks, I always tell applicants, I've just recently give high school students coming to our main university campus, like in their visits, that we have to meet with them and say, start keeping a journal, listing all your experiences that you've had into the different categories. Write the name of the person that hired you and how many hours you work, because that's what you need at the end. And keep a journal write a little bit about those experiences. I think because there's for each of those experiences, and Glenn will talk more detail about it, you get to describe a little bit of what the job was or what the experience was, and then you can pick 3 that are your most meaningful experiences. So the workbook fits along that you get started thinking about what you need to do, and things like letters of evaluation we'll talk about a little bit later, but even your personal statement, the sooner you start and articulating your journey, your story, how you got to where you got to now that you want to become a physician, and how to articulate it, the earlier you start, the better. So I don't know if I need to spend a lot of time here. You can see the basics there, and then those resources, you could read those and digest them and see that. But my main advice here, like the take-home message, is start early in documenting all the things that you're doing. This workbook is an excellent option for you to start writing these things in so you're ready. I'm a visual person, so when I put pen to paper, I start seeing holes. Oh, I thought I had more clinical experiences. I really don't. I thought I had more shadowing. I thought I had more of this area, and I don't. And so that helps set an agenda for you moving forward in areas of opportunities to improve. So next slide. Again, here's the workbook. So there's biographic information. So this is, the new question that has come up there. And I think it's new. So we'll see how it works out. I think it's kind of exciting to be able to allow applicants to go a little bit more detail of some of the hardships that they've had and things like that. So I think this is a great section. It's new, so read that part in the book. I think it's new for all of us, but I really think this is a great new addition that AMCAS came up with, and Glenn probably in previous years that was involved in that. I'm just about 3 months old on this committee here.
This one, the other impactful experiences was the disadvantage question. And I was literally on a work group for 2 years to rewrite this question. You think it just rewrite a question, you like sit down one afternoon. Amazing how much work we went into this. And we're excited too, because this work was done and we actually submitted all this work to academic medicine. So knock on wood, we're going to have a published work coming out of this. But it was a heavy lift, but we heard, or at least the AAMC heard over and over, whether people really knew whether they should fill out this question or not. But, this is where it gives you an advantage right now, because you could open up this link, read it tonight, and then start getting an idea whether, if I needed to answer this question. I love how Pat said that too. Starting to fill out this material, then you're like, oh, wait, I might not have this balance. I might need to look at this. And we'll talk into that a little bit later. But every resource is there. This is just 2 pages out of everything. And like I said, Pat's right, it is a heavy lift for sure. And this is where we want to kind of get into where, we want to help you start thinking about those tools. And I think you were going to cover this section, right, Pat?
Yeah. So here's a personal statement. It's kind of funny because right now I'm in the middle of meeting with a number of applicants who were unsuccessful this year in getting into our medical school. So I meet about a half hour with each applicant to give them feedback on their application to help them out. So the personal statement, I usually don't comment on the personal statement. And the reason why is because if I start saying, well, you need to think about this, and do this, then all the personal statements submitted to our school is going to sound the same. And the reason why I think that, you don't want to do that is this is where you get to show yourself, right? Let us know about you, because all of us have a different, unique experiences. Some are similar, but oftentimes we have different, unique experiences that help shape us, who we are, why we're where we're at, and the decision that helped us to come to the point of where we want to become a physician. So it's very personal. It's your perspective. So I try not to give too many hints on here, but this is a good set of slides that Glenn helped set up. And so if you get the next slide, so you can see what I talked about. This is your opportunity to tell your personal story, because sometimes, depending on the interview format at a school, if you get interviewed, our interviews tend to be more conversational. We give our applicants an opportunity to kind of tell their story. Others are very focused on MMI and maybe still have an interview. So this is where you want to make sure, just in case, I got to make sure I tell my story. So this helps you become a three-dimensional person. What is your motive for applying to medical school? What intrigues you about life? What truly motivates me? So I think that's one thing we look for is applicants. Do they come across as motivated, or we have well, I'm smart, I should be in medical school? That's not actually good enough, right? There has to be more to that. And especially it's important to articulate that both in the interview part as well as your written application. I tell all applicants, you're going to get a question from us, and this is every school. Why do you want to be a doctor? Essentially, that is still the hardest question for every applicant to answer. And the most common one is, well, I feel like I'm compassionate. I want to help people. You can help people being a nurse. You can help people being a physical therapist. You can help people get the best sandwich that day, that'll make their day, right? There's a lot of ways to help people. And so that's the key part. And then the themes are there, I think is there. Pick a couple of themes. It's really about two big things that maybe you want the school to know about you. Go a little bit deeper in that. And that's what that's about there. So very important. And I think I got the next slide also. Yeah, do's and don'ts. So do right in the present tense. Resolve all hanging stories. Don't leave us hanging, especially if it's a good story, and remember that a lot of people are going to read this. So make it approachable. I always tell people just make sure it is who you are, right? Don't write something, because I can't tell you how many applications I reviewed. Then we interview the applicant, and it's like two completely different people. And we wonder, did they write it, or did somebody else write their personal statement? So it's very important that you write it, you put it together, it reflects who you are. Don't rewrite your experiences. Don't give us another laundry list of all the things you've done. We'll see that. Don't share your whole entire story. I mean, I'm sure you could get a few key pieces of your story that actually reflects the journey that you've taken. And don't forget to ask for feedback. I tell everybody, have someone else proofread it, check it. We all know what we want to say, and sometimes it makes sense in our own mind, but when someone else reads it, they'll look like, I don't understand what you're trying to tell us here. And I'll give you just a quick story, especially about grammatical errors and spelling mistakes. We had a surgeon that was on our committee, and they would literally count every spelling mistake and grammatical error. And her line was basically sloppy in the application, sloppy in the OR, dead patient.
Wow.
And the point she was trying to get at was, being a physician is about attention to detail, right? Taking the time to make sure you get it right. And for her, it was, if you can't take the time in your application to make this a great product, that might be a reflection of who you are as a person, and you're going to be the same way as a physician. So take good care. I mean, that was hardcore, but that was her basic line. And surgeons are like that. So that's why, be prepared if you go into surgery. Next slide.
Just when you're in South Dakota, I'm in Arizona, and as you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, this has to be a surgeon. I mean, you can tell the type of person that they are. They're no nonsense. That is for sure.
No offense to surgeons. I have a lot of surgeon friends.
Yeah. And I love a few things you said there too. If you went back a few slides, you have in the AMCAS application, you have 5,300 characters to define why medicine. And so we're going to see that there. And now you got a personal statement. So what are you going to, what are you going to do that's different in there? One thing I always share too is I love seeing a human connection. When you're trying to define, a personal statement, and there's so many ways to serve, like you said, but you guys are all out there getting these experiences. I hope you're trying to get these experiences. But think about that in the back of your head. Maybe this moment that you met this physician or met this patient, or you help somebody in a hospital, that might have been that moment. Maybe that was that spark to medicine that will define it. And that's all, as Pat said there, we're just trying to find these connections. And I love when he talked about getting all that people's feedback. And the thing I always tell everybody, at the end of the day, you're going to have 15 people read this personal statement. At the last night, read it and make sure it's still your voice. Make sure it's still your story. I think that's critical for you to be out there, because what is it, 50,000 apps, 20,000 seats. Both Pat and I have just way too many applications for how many seats we have. But with that, you heard us already talking about trying to find the connection to us, trying to find the connection to you. So you try and find those schools that are right fit for you, and then you try and give that message to show us, that it's why it's that fit. And like I said, there's a story to be told on every website. So just be thinking about that as you kind of go through this experience. Anything else you want to add to the personal statement there, Pat?
I'm done. So you can go next. I think you're up next.
Experience section. Yes. So, this one, I wanted to tackle too. From us, like I said, that AMCAS application cycle has all these multiple ways that you can now start documenting who you are. Like I said, yesterday I had 18 listed here. Today we have 19 listed here because we added that advocacy and social justice, which I think we're all really proud of that work. I think over these last few years, we've seen this the social determinants of health being called out a little bit more, the politics of the world coming into more focus, just this ability to want to serve all seems to be a voice that wants to get out there. And so I think the AMCAS and the AAMC heard that. So we added this last one so you guys have this ability to really articulate who you are.
Dr. Fogarty, somebody asked actually a question, and I kind of wanted to touch on this and saying who should read your application besides. So it probably shouldn't be like your significant other, your parents and things. Make sure it's your teachers, your English teachers. If you ask doctors to read stuff, they're terrible at editing anything like that. You should have your English professors. That's why, like, one of the first English classes I took in college, I became BFFs with my English professor. And now, like, whenever I write something, I ask him to edit it for me, and he does a way better job than anybody else. And so your English professors, most of your colleges have career centers, and they hire English graduate students. They pay them, a little bit more than bread and water to help students to edit their papers and things. And so those are the resources to ask, not asking doctors or, are people that probably wouldn't do as a good job, because you are writing a story. You're not making a value statement about being a physician, but it's a story and it has to make sense in English.
Yeah. Pat, who else do you think should be reading a personal statement? Or
I would say if you're still in college or school, I mean, the two top things would be the like the writing center at the school, if you have that, because that's their job. Sometimes you go to professor. I know someone who still teaches and does. It's really busy. It's hard for me to do it, but that's the job of the writing centers at those schools to do that. And then if you have a good pre-med advisor, we had one on our talk about a month ago, pre-med advisors that they work one-on-one with their students and review applications. And so you tap your pre-med advisor, depending on whether they're more of a full-time or not. You may get more help or not less help. But I would say the career center would be the number one place. If you're out of college, I'm sure some friends that were good in English, or that, and try to find that opportunity to do that.
Yeah,
yeah, and And if you're away from where you went to school, if you're at any community college at any place in the state, since your taxpayers are funded, you could access this career centers without being a student. And so that's a free resource that you already pay for. So don't try to pay, a couple $100 somebody to do it. There's a lot of free resources out there.
That's great advice. Yeah, I always think it's nice for someone that knows you to be the first layer of readers. So like I said, family members, and they could tell you whether it's genuine, but it may be harder for them to be real honest with you. And absolutely inside the schools, inside those resource centers, absolutely fantastic. If you are lucky enough to know anybody that actually, is a medical student or went to medicine, utilizing those resources, they're always willing to help too. So yeah, but again, end of the day, trust yourself. I think we want to see the real you, trust your story, the authentic you. They call it that, the imposter syndrome. Just know that this is your journey and this is the way you need to walk in, and if this is where you want to go, we're going to try and help you get there. So yeah, some great thoughts there. So yeah, so on to the experience section 2. So like I said, so great work done here. 19 action or areas that you could note. The story I love to tell here is I used to sit right next to our learning specialist. So when you come to our medical school, you're assigned this learning specialist, and they help you understand how you best learn. And so they're working with the students all the time. And they came to me at the end of a season one year, and they said, you know what, Glenn, the people that were in their undergraduate studies that learned how to balance it all there are the ones that know how to balance it all in medical school. So we took that to heart from us. And all of you here that are with us tonight, I think you guys are already in this kind of boat. You probably are, trying to figure out how to go to school, maybe trying to balance some things that are going on in life or with your family or with a job, and you're trying to bring all these balances together, to get to that path of, my lifetime goal of maybe being a physician. So, for you, chalk up that you're already there. And so when we have all these things, though, you guys have to start thinking about, how do I articulate this? How do I show them a well-balanced person? So for me, another trick for the trade right now is you go home, you open up a Word doc, you open up an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, and you have all these lists of things which we'll be sharing with you. But then you start, as Pat said, start finding out where you might have possible holes. For us at our medical school, and I think this is pretty similar. Again, different schools can have different kind of stories, but for us, we always talk about finding a well-balanced candidate have these areas. Certainly have to have some clinical background. You have to know that you've been in that kind of environment, or why else would you be applying to medicine? Some people might have harder access to that, and but again, being resourceful or walking into a local clinic or the local doctor, local hospital, and saying what your goal is and saying, hey, how can you help me? Sometimes that just opens up the door. But getting that kind of clinical experience, I think, is invaluable. The next one, a little harder, absolutely, if we're trying to get research or labs, but inside whatever schools you're at right now, it doesn't have to be. It could be a wet lab, it could be a dry lab, it could be a different lab other than in the sciences. I mean, your data collecting, all those kind of things are valuable for you. Because again, you have to be a lifelong learner. If you're going to be a physician, you're always going to be back in the classroom thinking about learning about what the next thing is out there. Leadership, for us, it's critical. We want people that are leaders in so many ways, shapes, or form. Jobin on this tonight, Arad, Veronica on this tonight. They're showing leadership skills right here. I saw both of their smiling faces on that video when we were opening up. They're finding these opportunities to give back. They're finding these opportunities to lead, and having that kind of ability to do that is absolutely fantastic. And then all of you should have some kind of community or volunteering. Again, that call to medicine, that wanting to serve, as Pat talked about. I mean, this is showing where you want to serve. And there's all these things. And I always talk about breadth and depth. I love to see depth. There's something that is truly passionate to you, and you've gone back year after year, time after time, just because it's a community and an area you want to serve. Absolutely love that. And then, if it is something where you could volunteer and just expose yourself to different kind of areas, absolutely fantastic. And I guarantee you, no matter what city you're in today, There's ways to go out there and get community service or volunteer and help. And it shows again the type of person you are, because we just want that well-rounded person. And the last one, extracurricular hobbies. I say only one because on this AMCAS application, you have 15 sections that you get to list. So I say, okay, one of those 15, you got to give to an extracurricular hobby or something like that. Just so, because for us, it shows how to relieve stress. So I don't care if it's baking or hiking or cooking or running or jogging or whatever, knitting. I mean, just something that just tells you, how to, I like to binge watch, I don't know, Emily in Paris. I don't know, whatever it is. But you know how to just go get that little bit of relaxation. So tonight you could open up Excel, open up a Word document, start listing these things out and start seeing, am I presenting myself as this well-rounded candidate? Or as Dr. Manzaro said earlier, where are my holes? And then that's the things that we can work on, so we are that well-rounded candidate as we go forward. Pat, anything you want to add to the experiences section?
No, you did a fantastic job.
You're the man. All right, guys. And then we're going to just cover one other area, and then we're going to get it to the Q&A. So for us, oh, wait, no, it's not. Click down there. There we go. Last recommendation, and Dr. Manzaro is going to walk us through here a little bit.
Yeah, if you want to get the next slide there. So I think hopefully this is general common sense, but it's supporting who you are, and you really want to get good letter writers that hopefully know you well. It's not the easiest thing to do. So I would recommend, especially if you're still early on, if you're a freshman or sophomore, start building a working relationship with potential letter writers, whether it's getting to know your professors a little bit better. I think it's easier to do when you're in smaller classes that are more active learning, small group sessions than larger classes. So to give you an example, I teach an undergrad. I used to teach an undergrad biochemistry course. I had 100 students in my class. It was sort of lecture based, and it's hard for me to know those students. And so they would always ask me for a letter of reference. I said, look, I could write you a letter. I could tell you tell them what place you are in the class. If you got a certain grade, I could say, typically this is at this level, this applicant will succeed in medical school. But it's hard for me to get to know you more on a personal level. And so with professors, it's nice to have an academic letter. Try to have someone that you've built a relationship over the years in some capacity, if you can. Or other work experiences. So it doesn't have to be just professors. So anything, a variety is good. So our school, we don't specify specific letters, like who they come from. Some schools might. So you want to make sure you pay attention to what the schools are looking for. Having said that, we tend to like a variety of letters. So we expect a letter that probably speaks to academic, intellectual curiosity. Hopefully a letter, work, volunteer, maybe a letter that maybe if you've done some clinical experiences would be good to get a variety. And all those letters are good, whether if you have a job that's in the clinical setting or not in a clinical setting, even construction work job, right? They can talk about hard work, always on time, still talk about professionalism and things like that. Those are attributes we look for and that you can demonstrate in a variety of different areas. So timely LOR request, give your letter writer some time. I've written letters, helping students out because it was the night before. But if I know they had a lot of time and they asked me a few days before it's due, it's hard to write a really excellent letter, when that. So timely letter request, and sure it'll be a strong one. So this is where, you want to be careful because I think it's kind of expected, but don't be afraid to sit there, really like a letter of reference from you. Hopefully you've done what you built, that solid relationship, and that you've worked well and you've heard praises at some point about your work ethic that they're going to write you a good letter. But don't be afraid to ask, can you write me a strong letter of support? Because if they can't, hopefully they'll be honest, say, well, I don't know you as well. I've done that with some applicants. I say, look, I really don't know you that well. My letter's going to be vanilla, right? So provide relevant supporting materials. Never hurts to give them a resume or CV. Especially if you're a reapplicant and maybe you're going back to a college professor or someone that maybe you haven't seen for a year or two that you may want to have them write a letter for you. Give them an updated resume, CV. I think one of the positives, I think if we can say there's positives from COVID, is we've all learned how to do virtual meetings now. So it's much easier for you to set up a meeting with a former professor or former employer and say, I'd like 20 minutes of your time if possible to update you on what I've done. So that way you can kind of demonstrate your enthusiasm, your motivation. You can get them updated. They can ask you questions back. You'll be surprised how much of that gets into the letter. So that's what I recommend, especially for reapplicants out there. Don't just ask for a letter. Give them materials, updated materials. Ask if it's okay if at any time. So work with their schedule to meet with them, whether in person or virtually, 20 minutes, and talk to them and demonstrate why you want to do what you want to do. Allow them to ask you questions. That'll just make for a stronger letter. And then pay attention to the specific medical school criteria. I talked about that before. Some schools will accept certain types of letters and not others. There's like committee letters, individual letters. I think most schools probably accept all types of letters, but you do want to look on MSAR to make sure that they accept all types of letters. If it says 3 to 5 letters, keep it to 3 to 5 letters. Don't try to put, that's a lot of reading for us, but that means that why do you need 10 letters to get your point across? 3 to 5 is what we ask. 3 to 5 is what you should range for, right? So that's the key thing, right? So you really want to make sure that you have a good idea what your letter writer is going to write, like that they're going to write you a good letter. And it still surprises me when I see some letters that are not very good. And I think that means that the applicant wasn't self-aware, maybe to realize that what they were doing wasn't very good. So that speaks to maybe self-awareness that we're also looking for in applicants. So that's, I think, all I have. Maybe the next slide. I think that's it.
I think I'll have a couple thoughts too, but I'm going to put Arad and Veronica on the hot seat. Unmute for a second. So our medical school, we state we highly recommend a clinical letter recommendation. Do you guys know what highly recommend means?
Doesn't hurt to have it.
No, you must have it. Somebody else just gave a talk, and we even took that quote and put it on Instagram. If it's recommended, highly optional, do it. It shows initiative.
Exactly.
Every time it's not a question.
My missus would be like, well, he doesn't have a clinical letter recommendation. I said, it's not recommended. required. They're like, it's highly recommended. And so, yeah, you guys see that out there. Make sure you put that extra step in there for us. And one thing, and I like, Pat has to write letters. I have to write letters. Gosh bless my medical students. Sometimes they're like, oh, I don't mean to be the last second, but I need by Monday, I'll do it for my kids. I guarantee it, but don't make me the happy. So given that timeline, like Pat talked about, and I don't mind you might want to make that suggestion too. I'm like sometimes, hey guys, if you give me the kind of the framework or the talking points you want me to cover, just like Pat said, having a meeting with them, or just, I'm like, if you want to rough write it, for me, and then, I'll make it into my voice, and, I'll make sure I know what, the things I could actually confirm. I don't mind that at all. So it is a big process, taking that time. Great advice from Pat. We get frustrated if we say 3 to 5. I want the AAMC to limit it, honestly. But when they submit 8, my committee will read 8, but it's, that's a lot of work. It is a big process going through. So there's a lot of tools there. Jobin, you want to add anything else too about anything we stated so far?
No, the only thing I could tell you is that when an instruction is given by the schools, it's not like they're not doing it to be mean. That's what they want to see. And so don't try to do something that they're not, because then it just frustrates them. And it just basically shows, like, for example, I work in an academic center and you have residents and medical students. And if an attending says, I need you to put this suture into this location, and if you not follow that instruction, then a lot of bad things can happen. And that's just basically the medical schools look for is to be able to follow instruction. And if they ask you to follow that instruction, they expect you to do it.
No, exactly. So yeah, there's a lot of tools out there. And like I said, we wanted this focus tonight to really be on all the different kind of things. We don't want to show you negative, like here's a bad letter of recommendation or here's a bad personal statement. We just want to give you the tools to think about and what you could do to kind of prepare. And then that's where we want to kind of spend this last bit. We're just going to open it up. I'll quit screen sharing.
Yeah, so this is also like if you're taking any classes with a science lab, in a semester, you're going to probably spend about 160 hours with that professor. I spend a lot less time with my significant other, during the semester. And so you're spending a lot of time and there's a lot of downtime to get things heated and to get things processed and sit. So just go talk to your professors or your TAs. If you're at a big university, you probably have graduate students, and those are also really good gatekeepers to the professors. And so just building those relationships and going to office hours, the worst feeling to ever I do this thing for this EMT Corps that it's really hard when somebody says, can you write me a letter of recommendation? And you have this panic inside of you that's like, oh my God, I don't know this person that well enough. And they've put this heavy burden on me. And then I have to write something good about them and I just can't do it, And so just get to know people and, stand out in a positive way, not a negative way, but that's.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go off screen for 30 seconds as we build out this first question. I got one person that stuck a note right here. I have to answer one question real quick, so I'll be right back. So. All right.
Veronica, do you want to start to ask the first question?
Let's see. This one is kind of lengthy. I'm going to try my best to condense it, but it did come up a few times. Someone is interested in retaking their MCAT after their May testing date. So they are going to take it next month. And they want to take it perhaps in September because their scores may be good enough for other schools, but they're not the best that that applicant can do. Should they wait another year to apply, and also would it be a red flag if they don't tell them that they're intending to take the exam again, like for the second time?
So I guess that's an interesting question because typically, hopefully, you'll be honest. We're looking for honesty. So if you're planning on taking the exam in the AMCAS application, they'll say they're planning on a retest at a certain date. I think that could be fine. If someone asks you, you just have to be prepared and say, well, I feel like I can do better, and I wanted to go out there and demonstrate that I can do better. So that does show kind of initiative. It does show, the desire to improve, right? So when you get a score back from an MCAT, you've basically received feedback, right? So that's a way of getting feedback that this is where I scored. And in medicine, we're going to give you a lot of feedback, whether it's in scores of tests or in feedback of how you performed in a clinical setting. What we're looking for is how you take that feedback and try to improve, right? So, it's happened. So sometimes we have our committee members goes, I'm not sure why someone with a 515 retook the MCAT to get to 517. But, they explained that I don't think it's a wise thing because I think it's high risk, high reward. What if you go get a lower score? I mean, 515 to me is a spectacular score, so to me, that's great. Even 510, I think, is a great score. So I would say it's high risk, high reward. I wouldn't hide from it, but just, articulate why you wanted to do it. And you say, I felt like I could do better. And, I pushed myself, just to try to improve. And, but don't make it sound like you're pushing yourself too much that we start worrying that, you're going to like burn out.
Yeah, and this is just a follow-up question to that is a 510 and a 515 is a great score range, but how do you know that you're not going to get lower than that? I mean, and that's the fear. Somebody could cut you off that morning, you could have a toothache. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns. And then this is another follow-up question was if you're applying for fall of 23, is taking the MCAT spring of 24 too late? And can you talk about timeline and applying, the timeline a little bit?
I think you had the years backwards, didn't you? They want to apply for this coming fall?
They're applying for this fall, but they want to retake the MCAT in the spring of 24.
But we're in 23 right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got that?
Well, they'll be taking it for what typical applicants take for the next cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a glutton for punishment, you want to retake an MCAT that you feel you have a good score. I mean, that's like, again, it's fine, right? You just have to articulate why. I mean, you're going to be submitting your application pretty early. You sign up when you sign up. You could wait to sign up and still do it to take it in the next spring, right? So,
yeah,
I'm not sure I completely understand
I mean, I could jump in there just MCAT wise in general. I mean, yes, I mean, national average is 511, 500's a 50th percentile. We moved our minimum from a 495 to a 500 to even apply here. And with that, our admissions committee, is fine with someone taking a test a second time, possibly a third time, maybe more than 3. We've admitted somebody a couple times, but more than 3 times, they think they have a pretty good idea of who they are academically, and at least that preparation for an MCAT. We've certainly seen some that 497, and the next time they took it, they got a 511, and we're like, wow, that's a huge jump and good for them, And again, as Pat says, there's always ability to tell the story. And, like on our secondary, our very last question, is there anything else you want to cover that you just didn't cover anywhere else in the application? It's pretty much, and that's where you could tell a story about, hey, that first time I took this exam, I wasn't prepared, my family, I was in a car wreck that morning, whatever it was, but the second time, I really put the focus down because this is who I was and this is where I want to walk. We don't mind also if you're applying, like I said, timeline wise, you're applying this spring to enter this next year, so a year from now, and you're going to take the test late. Oh, I think I see what you're saying, Pat. But they're going to take it later into the cycle. With that, we don't mind. We just have to have that note there. And, thank you. If you have a tougher score sitting there, a 499 or something like that, we can't process your application until that next score. So we have a holding bin until that application comes in, and then we just start processing from there. It doesn't put to us anybody with a disadvantage. We have 15 applicant days, and we make sure that there is seats for every one of those reviews. So we make sure we're not filling up everybody within the first month. So we have that whole time for us in our window. I think we go till November 15th where we'll receive applications. And so it gives you that window of opportunity as well.
Next question is, how do you view the new 2023 and 24 AMCAS disadvantaged student prompt as different from the prompt in the previous years?
Glenn, you spent 2 years. I'll let you summarize that.
Grand question. I think every medical school across the country is going to have to learn how to reevaluate that statement this year. So I think it's going to be a conversation that they have with all of their admissions committees. It is something that we're going to note and bring forward to them so they understand that it is a change to that. For us, I think it's honestly going to be more articulate. You're going to be able to shape it more in the way that I think all the medical schools can see, because the examples that you'll see, I think it'll be able to really kind of hone in on that. So to us, I think it's fantastic that tool is there, but every single person has a different story. And, with that, and I don't, other life experiences, we don't even want to call it disadvantage, but just these other life experiences, we want to just understand your journey. So if you are, Pat and I both deal with rural candidates like, crazy. And, thank you. It literally is 30 miles for them to get to a clinic, and where somebody in downtown Phoenix could get 2,000 hours, working at Banner University Medical Center because they're 4 miles away from it. This person's going to get 200 hours over the next year. To that's an equal to us because they're going to be able to articulate that. They're going to show that, and our committees across the country know how to note that type of work. And we all want to build classes that are a reflection of our community. And Pat is working diligent, and they're doing a grand job. But probably one of the nation leaders. And find the people that want to go back into those communities and serve. Just yesterday, I had the University of Colorado medical school down here, and it was the gentleman that runs their rural program, and we're learning from them. Just like Pat said, he had Harvard coming up to their campus. We're learning how Colorado works with their rural environment and how we can maybe tweak our admissions process to help us. So I think everybody tries to read. Everybody has this idea. Thank you. There is this, kids from the 2 MD parents, and they went to that super school and they got that super score, and great, there'll be a percentage of a class in anybody like that, but that's not a well-rounded class to get 120 of those. For us to find people that want to go back and serve in different areas and be in the, be a reflection of our schools, I think that's most critical for us. Anything to add there, Pat?
Nope, that's
the only thing that I would tell everyone too is that all the medical schools talk to each other, they all hang out, they all meet a couple times a year. They all have each other's emails and phone numbers, and so there's a lot of communication and collaboration as they create this every year and do this kind of work. So it's not, they're not like all like hunkered up in their in their own buildings, and so they do. There's a lot of collaboration from what I've noticed. And
yeah, I'll just say, I mean, this is another opportunity to you tell your story, right? And I think, you have a choice, and I think the more opportunities that we provide for applicants to tell their story, the better for us to get to know the applicant overall.
And we definitely get together on a yearly basis. Pat and I see each other at the national conference, and then we each have regional meetings. We're like on the Western group on student affairs. And Pat, where's your
Central?
Where are you guys meeting this year?
We just met recently. We were in Kansas City, so the Central group on student affairs.
So I'm setting
just joined with the Southern group.
Yeah, I'm setting them up because we just met in Hawaii.
I know.
We win that one this year.
I'm a big Kansas City barbecue fan. So
all right.
I ate well, so I'm happy.
You did fine. All right, guys. What's the next question?
Alrighty, the next question is, the MSAR doesn't include LGBTQ cultural competency as a category for comparing medical schools. If that is important to us, how would you suggest we find that information besides asking the schools individually?
I absolutely love that question. And that's the work that Pat and I do. If that is not in there, that is something we could quickly bring back. We just had our second look this right now. So where people are accepted medical school and they're trying to decide where they go. And we just had 2 days of events, and we have a LGBTQ interest group, and they wanted to make sure that they had time inside our, these 2 days to say hello to all of our students, and just so they could make sure they had this ability to feel welcome. And that ability to be inside the MSAR is just a grand idea. So that's something we could bring up quickly. So my kind of guess is by next year it's going to be in there. That shouldn't be a hard one to add at all. So thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah, and it looks like there's some good links put in the chat there that you could look at. I would say is, do your homework, because I'll be honest, even if you put it in like something in the application or something that we do, school, like the person said, schools can say that they do these things. You have to look at the school's actions, I guess. So I'll be honest. I mean, that's where you find out. Hopefully, people or talk to the medical students if you have a chance, so we have our students meet with other students alone in a room and go ahead, ask whatever questions you like. And So that, I think, if it's a very important component in your decision, then that's where I think you need to kind of roll up the sleeves a little bit and seek out students in that program and ask about it. And they'll tell you exactly what's going on. And so to me, that's the most honest way to find out about that.
And I think medical schools in general are very open, and college universities are very open in welcoming environments. But Pat and I also are coming from very, I think probably two conservative states. And so we get a lot of questions all the time, from people that are thinking about coming to, Arizona, what is it like? So for us to, have the conversation with our students, I think it's critical for us, because it just, Pat and I always say, quote unquote, sell, but we're not here to sell. We're here to put, our students in front of other, candidate students, and let the real story be out there on who's really got that welcoming environment. So yeah, I like this conversation.
Yeah, so I just put that thing, Sabrina Springer, who's actually soon to be MD in a couple of weeks. She's the executive director. She was the executive director of medical student for Pride. They have a scorecard that they put out, but also reach out to them, because they could put you in touch with a whole network of people. And then they have the scorecard that they do it themselves.
Cool. I'm going to click on that too. There you go. Thanks, my friend. Good tool.
All right. The next question is, what do you think about the customized letter of recommendations? So let me give you some context. Let's say they know a physician from a certain medical school, and they ask that physician to write that letter of recommendation tailored around that medical school. Is that going to be something looked as favorable, or something looked as trying too hard? What do y'all think?
How you want to start?
So are you saying if there's a physician at a medical school that the applicant is applying to do that? We're a big state, small population. The fact is most of our applicants, if they want to get clinical experiences, have touched our school in some capacity. So those letters are going to happen. And I think there's nothing wrong with it. I think what we're looking for is an honest reflection of the applicant. And if hopefully the letter writer is writing an honest letter, and they get their point across, that, so I've seen a number of those letters at our school where the letter writer is a clinician. They'll say, I've had a lot of residents, I've had a lot of medical students from this school. This person has been working with me or shadowing for all these hours. They'll fit right in, and so that's fine. We tell our committee, if we have a committee, if it's one of our committee members, they need to recuse themselves and not be participating in that conversation. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think hopefully what we do with these letters is we try to read and make sure that it's a good, honest letter, and that's where we kind of corroborate with the whole application, the other reference letters. I mean, we get some letters that they say this is the strongest and brightest medical student that I've ever, or pre-med student that I've ever worked with, and then their MCAT score is very low, their GPA is very low, and there's not something there that supports that letter.
Yeah. Only thing I would add there too, if I see someone that wrote a letter and they're one of our faculty, we absolutely love it, because we know someone and we already trust them and they trust that extra person. So that's a huge plus. The only thing I tell you to be careful when we're talking about mistakes is if you then you use that person and you submit that letter to other schools as well. Make sure they're not customizing that letter too much to this specific school. So you might need 2 letters from them. One, hey, I want to submit one that's going to really talk about me and that connection to Phoenix. But I know you so well, thank you. On average, you guys apply to 18 medical schools across the country. So if you're going to utilize that letter, you want to make sure that, this is why this person would be a great fit at Phoenix. You got to make sure that's not in that letter or, disadvantage you. So you just be careful there on how you utilize those. But again, if it's, Dr. Mallon from family medicine over there at Banner University and she writes a letter, I already know her and I already trust her. So that quickly, I trust a little bit more about that candidate. So that's a positive to me. Just again, that little word of careful.
Right, I got a good one. How would you recommend approaching clinical activities and volunteer community service that happened 10 to 15 years ago? Should this be included, or should one focus only on the most recent few years since one decided to become a physician?
Got a strong opinion there, Pat?
I mean, some clinical experience is better than none, right? And so depending on how much you have, I would say it depends on how meaningful that experience was, right? I mean, even if it was an experience that was 10 or 15 years ago, I mean, so we had, a non-trad student, former military, that did that kind of work in the military 10 years ago. I mean, it was intense. I mean, so we feel that was a great experience to put down, right? So I think that will depend on the context of the type of experience it was. Was it something very meaningful? I spent 10 years as a as a nurse practitioner or something, or 5 years. That's a lot of meaningful experience. You don't forget that skill set, right? So I think that could be important. Now, if it's some minor stuff, I mean, you want to make sure you have more recent. So I would say it shouldn't be in lieu of focusing on getting more recent experiences. But I think if it was a very rich experience, I think it's good to go. I mean, I think it's good to put it in there.
Yeah, I'll join in. We'll keep going because I know there's a lot of questions. But yes, what I'm hearing also is a non-traditional student, and I think medical schools value that. I love somebody with a military background. I just, on our second look, days right now, we had someone who she's 33 years old right now, and she's like, at the end of these 2 days spent with, she goes, I feel like I belong so much, and these, she's like, these kids are 10 years younger than me, but we're just all so excited to get started. So I love her energy toward that. And yes, I think you could find something that was truly meaningful, but we'd also want to make sure that there was these experiences today, that continuation was there, and that you are still showing today you've had that passion. And it might have been life, it could have been a military service, or, thank you, I had kids and, I had to stop for a while, but guess what? I'm coming back to it. But that first connection was invaluable. So just, again, how you tell your story, I think it would be perfect. Rod, what do you got for us?
All right, so this question is, would you mind elaborating a bit more about writing in present tense for our personal statement? The person asked because they talk a lot about their experiences that shaped their life, and they're in past tense. And do you just mean the conclusion and introduction should be in present tense? That's pretty much it.
So I think, these were some slides that were there. I'll be honest, I don't know if it needs to be in the present tense. Is that critical? I mean, I think there's I'm trying to now get present perfect progressive tense. You can still be talking about the past to go through that. So I think that's what they mean. I think you can still talk about things that happened in the past. Glenn, I don't know. I mean, yeah. We don't pick that apart in our committee.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to talk about in future tense. I mean, what I plan on doing, I think it is present tense of what you've done, what that call to medicine is, what those things that spark to medicine, what you got. Of course, that's going to be, a more historical tense. But, it's not the, I want, I wish, I could. It's going to be more in that, this is where I believe I am. This is where I believe I want to go. This is what I've seen. This is how it's building me out to be this type of person that I am. These are the influences and the people that have influenced me. And this is where I'm walking. So I think it's more of that type of just owning that tense versus, and a kid, if it was, and I've told this story before, maybe on this session too, but I lost both my parents recently, and both of them ended up in hospice, and I was lucky enough to hold their hand at the very end. And my most powerful personal statement I ever read was a kid a couple years ago. He's applying to medical school. He talks about this working at a hospice. His family goes away for lunch, and he could tell it's that person's last moment. And he just sat down and held their hand. And I'm like, it just connected with me. I'm sitting there reading their person, bawling my head out because I'm thinking about my parents. But it was that moment. And so that's, he is in a present tense of that situation, that moment. And that's, I think, all we're trying to articulate there, that you're just showing that this, not that, I wish I'm going to do this. This is where I hope to be. This is who this person was. And, of course, I became a fan of him. I'm like, now I got to find a reason to get this guy invited to here. And we did invite him. I can't remember whether he's ended up starting or not, but it was such a powerful moment, which I thought was fabulous.
Alrighty, I got the next question here. I've heard you should frame your experiences by telling stories unique to you when describing research projects. Should those also be stories or detailed descriptions of what you were studying, results, presentations, or maybe a combination of both?
Is this in the experience section, you think?
Yeah.
I could start there. I mean, and we didn't articulate that, but Pat did mention that one time where you got those 15 experiences, you have 3 that are most meaningful. And that's where I think you just kind of described a story where it is the most meaningful for you and how that's impacted for you. So in those, there's a little extra words there, so you could tell a little bit of more of a story in the impact, or how you've had an impact, or how it impacted you. So I think there's different ways to articulate that. But Pat, what were you thinking in yours?
Yeah, so for those 3 most meaningful experiences, I think you want to tell a little bit of a story of what you learned from that. How have you grown from that experience? How it relates to how it's going to make you a better medical student, physician, and help your community, right? So those are the things that you want to do. And even if it's research, it depends on the type of research, whether bench research or clinical research. Most research relates to probably some, eventual clinical problem, whether, bench research studying cancer or some neurodegenerative disorder or whatever that may be. I think that's where you tell your stories in those 3 experiences you choose as the most meaningful. Typically, the description is more describing what was that experience,
Yeah.
All right. This question is about the activity section. Can we mention posters, publications on the research lab when we're talking about the research we have done?
Quick answer, yes. And the idea with these different kind of various experiences, some I reference sometimes too, is you might have different kind of leadership, you might have different kind of research, and you might want to articulate it in different kind of areas, again, to show that well-rounded or that well-balanced person. So you might be, I did this great clinical work and got published, so I could have a published paper there, but I was also the lead. So maybe I then track it toward the leadership that I also did this in this kind of leadership role. So there's multiple ways you could kind of share your experience and show that you're well-rounded.
Yeah, and I would say this might be also, an example of being strategic, right? You have 15 experiences you can list. So if you have 17, right, and you want those 17 on there, how do you put them on there? Well, in the research, you talk about research, and then in there say, oh, we published a paper, here it is, as opposed to using just the publication part of that. So you can kind of double dip, I guess, if I could use that term. So what's interesting is one of the conversations we had, which was put on the back burner for now, I worked on this when we were working on the social justice question, was could we have a second description for a experience?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
So you can put there, my primary experience was, this work experience. So it was work in a clinical setting, but I was also a leader here. It was a leadership experience. So it allows you, because sometimes you're trying to figure out what to do when you have multiple designations. And so we talked a little bit about that. We ran some surveys and for the most part, applicants really liked that thought, but it was just put on a back burner for now. But that may be something coming in the future where now you could list 2 sort of experiences into one, where you can prioritize it. It was first a clinical experience, but I also was a leader in there because I was in charge of 4 people underneath me that I had to make sure got things done properly, right? So look for that soon. I think we'll see how that goes, but that was one of the discussions that we had in the past that was I just think put on the back burner right for now, but
yeah,
it's still on the radar.
Pat's got a leadership role. We'll both do, but I said I'll be cycling off soon. But that's something where he could have, an impact here. And hearing your guys' stories, I mean, this helps us reinforce what we want to do as we kind of tackle those kind of projects. So you're helping us. You're helping shape the future of this application for sure. A couple different ways already tonight. So time well spent for us for sure.
Nice. I have a question that came up. When is an application considered late in a cycle?
November 16th for me, because November 15th when it closes. No. I mean, there's different cycles. I mean, people have asked this question always, do I have to have that application in that first week? Do I need to, is there a certain area? I mean, I think Pat and I have two different kind of answers. I mean, for us, the application opens, or they start submitting to us about the end of June. For us, one person in my team looks at them and we send out secondaries. If you got you're a U.S. citizen and you have a minimum MCAT, everybody gets a secondary. We really don't tackle it until after July 4th. And guess what? After July 4th, there's 3,000 apps in this school already. And so we got to sort through all those heaps, and it just takes time for us. And so we don't know you hit submit on the first day or you hit submit on July 15th. It's just this work pile that we're working through. The only time I've heard in my admissions committee is, like I said, we close November 15th. And if we do see, maybe that week right before, we might get another 400 apps or something like that. And I have heard the committee, at that time, like wondering if some people have already heard from some other schools. And so we're a secondary thought. And I'm like, get it out of your head. Every application's fair. So I think if you're getting your applications in during the summer time, and then we still have months to process it, but we do start interviewing in August. So, the earlier, has more time to be considered. But again, I can't tell you, you put it in on, June 1st and June 25th, and we're going to read that application first. It doesn't kind of work out in our situation. How do you guys tackle it up in your area, Barrett?
Every school is different. We're similar. Our deadline is November 1st, so we're just a little bit earlier than you. But we have set up our selection process is that, yes, as we review applications, we do send out offers, but we always have spots available in our class. And so our philosophy is we like to review every application at least once before we fill our class, because we think sometimes someone that submits late is a hidden gem. Could be, right? We don't want to miss out on that. So that's our philosophy. It's not every school's philosophy. Some schools admit they fill their class, and then if you're late, you only get in a chance for an alternate list. So that's for us. And I'll be honest, we don't even start looking at our applications until the end of July, because we're still in the previous cycle. We don't matriculate our students until the third week of July. Once that's done, we're also, our admissions office does all the orientation. We're very busy setting up orientation week and doing all that. Once that's done, then we start thinking of the next cycle. So we might have a whole backload of applications, so we're not paying attention to dates submitted or things like that. As long as you're in by our deadline, we will look at it. But again, that I want to be honest here. There's some schools that matters.
I agree.
So you need to find out.
Yep. So summer safe, maybe SS, maybe think about that in one sense. But same thing, I'll make sure if they applied on November 40th, we still have seats for them to invite to interview. We have the consideration for them to have an admission decision. So our school tries to play fair across the country. But like I said, there's some thoughts in the back of our head of our committee. But for the most part, we want to have space too, but not across the nation. So I think it's good advice.
In fact, when I meet with some of the applicants that don't get in, and we talk about different things, and in some cases it may be that their GPA is kind of low and that they might benefit from doing a master's program, one of those kind of pre-med master's program to show that they can do well in those science courses. I encourage them to actually apply a little bit later, or even if they send their application in, I tell them to talk to our admissions coordinator and make sure you interview later so that we review your application in the spring. Because if you're starting a master's course in the fall, you're not going to have any grades until December. So the only updates we allowed our school is grades updates. So I tell them that gives you an opportunity to get at least the fall semester grades. Give us an update, and then when we process your application to be reviewed, I can say, Jane Smith is doing her started a graduate program in the fall. Her grades were submitted. She has 4 credits A in physiology, 4 credits A in biochemistry, 4 credits A in pathology, whatever that is. And so that gives them an opportunity now. Oh, okay. So they really improved their grades. It looks like they did something as opposed to what their undergrad grades are. So again, you have to do a strategy, but then you have to know the schools well. And don't be afraid to contact the schools. At least we feel this way. We're kind of friendly, upper Midwest friendly. Contact the schools and talk to the program direct, like the admissions director, and say, hey, can I wait until maybe later to be reviewed? Because I want to, be able to get my grades in, or things like that. So.
Okay. I have a question about Casper and Preview and how they're considered by the admission committee.
Do you use those, Pat?
We do not use those. We're thinking about it, but personally, I'm waiting to, get more data on what other schools are doing with them. So.
Yeah, and I can't help you either there. We don't utilize either one of those. We believe in our own admissions process and our interview system, so we just haven't utilized that as a tool for us. It is a way for a school to kind of make an easier decision maybe on who to invite to interview through doing that kind of pre-work on that. Same thing, our school, being on this advisory committee, they wanted us to be one of the test schools, but we looked at it and we weren't ready for it either. I think we're both in a kind of wait and see. I don't know what percentage across the country is utilizing it. Certainly it is just an extra tool for schools just to make a determination, mostly on who to invite to interview. I think is the timing that they utilize it for.
And some use it for screening. Others use it later in the cycle as a differentiator, maybe if they have applicants that are close, and then they'll look at those scores. And, if some applicants are lower on those scores, then that's a way to help differentiate. I think, every school is unique. They do their own thing.
Okay, I have another good one. Do your universities look at upward trends for GPAs? Are there any GPA cutoffs?
So we have a minimum GPA cutoff of 3.1 for undergrad. However, we will accept a master's program, or if you've done significant postdoc work, in case you had a horrible undergrad. So our school's philosophy is we like to judge applicants of where they are now and not where they might have been. So this helps some of our non-trad students, get back in. So we do have a cut, not to say that 3.1 is an automatic get in. That's just, we'll interview you if you're, have a state resident, South Dakota state residency or significant ties. We still have a pretty high average GPA. But we do admit students with that. So, and we do look at trends. I think we absolutely do look at trends. I mean, life happens for some applicants, even if they have a poor senior year and they have very strong other years, if they can articulate a life event that happens, so that's where maybe that disadvantage category not disadvantage, but the life experience category comes in, then, you have an ability to, tell your story, right? So I would say, yes, absolutely look at trends.
Yeah, and for us, we're 3.0 or higher. Same thing if it's under 3. If you did a master's degree or 18 credits of post-bac, we'll still consider the application. So there's no worries. Same thing, we do like a positive trend. If there is a trend that it goes a little bit down, tell the story. Thank you. I lost my mother during that year, and I had to take care of the family, and I just took a big dip. We totally understand that. It's just, and again, it's part of your story.
Okay, there are a few questions about like MCAT retake during the time you apply, but a few people asked, can you send the new MCAT score as an update letter with an explanation why you retook it? And also, if you're retaking an MCAT during the application cycle, does that delay your application?
So I'll start it. Yes, I mean, if you note that they're going to take a future date, then we hold applications until that new score comes in. So it just pulls us. If you don't let us know that you're taking that test, we're going to keep processing your app as it is. And so I don't think you can probably play catch up that year with that regard. I think the process is just too good. So as Pat said, communicate with the schools if there is something that you're thinking about. But if it's noted, I think it's pretty easy. If it's not, you're just thinking I need to do it in the middle of the season, it might be a little bit harder. Any other thoughts, Pat?
No, I think that hit it.
Yeah. Okay. Rapid questions. I know we're running out of time, so we'll keep going.
All right, I got the next one. How would admission committees look at online physician shadowing? Like, what happened during COVID versus in-person shadowing?
We're comfortable with it. We understand. I mean, we're getting a little bit further away from it, but there's still opportunities. I mean, rural environments, we have a call center, and so everything's kind of done virtually. We absolutely love it, the work they're getting there. So again, you know, a well balanced. You know, not everything online during COVID, absolutely fine. But if you have opportunities to get inside a clinical environment, but also do some kind of virtual, not a worry to us.
Yeah, I mean, we all recognize COVID was hard, and so we try to, adjust for that. So I think some of those experiences can be good. What's most important for us is because, when I meet with applicants, they all say, well, how many hours I need for clinical hours and how many hours? And I always tell them, so certainly, I mean, the more hours you do, typically the more you learn or the more you understand about a process. But what's most important is, again, I'll mention this before, the quality of the experience. How much have you gained from that experience? So you could have 1,000 clinical hours where you were peripherally involved versus, say, you were an intense 300 hours as a EMT or certified nursing assistant, where, I mean, it's day in, day out, you're going to have a strong, those might be more meaningful or better. So, I tell applicants, it's more about what you learn from those clinical experiences and how well you articulate what you learned, both in your interview and your application. So if it's a virtual thing, a virtual type of shadowing, and we ask you questions and you're having difficulty answering things about a clinical experience, then that tells us, you need more clinical experience. If you've done a virtual experience, but you've made it a rich experience, maybe you did extra work and research on it, then you articulate that well, then we feel, wow, they really got a lot out of that experience. So in the end, for us, what matters most is how well you articulate what you learned from your experience than the actual hours. Now, generally, there's a correlation with the more hours, the more you know, but it's not always a perfect correlation.
All right. Just a general question about interviews. Are they going to be in person for the upcoming cycle or virtual? And do you have any tips at all?
Look at both of us laughing at that one. You go first.
Well, so the AAMC has put out, I guess a recommendation that, for both you and me, so undergraduate medical education, as well as GME, which is the residency, that they hope that they would stay, not hope, but that they suggest staying virtual based on some surveys and the amount of money applicants can save. But they did emphasize that this is a unique thing for each school, and that there's different reasons why schools may need to be in person. So for us, we decided to stay virtual just because we have a lot of faculty that are across the state. We have campuses that are across the state. And for us to have our committee get involved more and get our faculty from across state involved more, virtual is just easier. Yep. So that's one thing. The other thing is also, we are a state school. We generally take South Dakota residents or those with significant ties. So most of our applicants know our school. So it's a little bit less important for them to actually come to our school, because a lot of them have come a high school visit. They've come as a college visit to visit our anatomy labs. That's different than, I think, a school that has a national applicant pool. For some of those schools, they may need to in person because they want applicants to come and visit their city and know them better. So I think it varies, but I will say probably 90 to 95% of the schools are going to remain virtual next year.
So I want to share a quick smile. Whoever asked the question, I'm so proud of you. I'm one of the 6 medical schools across the country that's still going to do face-to-face interviews. We're 10-year medical school. We're still young. We're separate from the University of Arizona by 100 miles. We need to tell our story this way. We need to get them on this campus and see who we are. So we utilize it as a recruitment tool. And Pat and I were on a meeting a month ago, and they kind of brought up that they're going to bring this new survey forward. And I'm like, what the heck are you? I fired off this big old long email to try and say, we can't post this. And So they gave us one sentence in there that, like that each school could make their own kind of decision. I'm like, fine, thanks. But our school, we do the face-to-face, and it is strategic. We do 2 virtual ones, so we call it a hybrid. So if you can't get here or the financial situation doesn't depend, we have that option for you. So we're comfortable what we do, but I didn't think the AAMC needed to put that little recommendation out. But that's why Pat and I laughed when you had to ask that question. All right, I know we got to get going, but you guys got a couple more or anything else that you want to, any themes that we need to cover?
I have another one. Do you have to do the 19 activities to be competitive applicant? What makes a competitive applicant in regards to the activity section?
I love that. Let me start first. It's 15 sections or 15 opportunities. And our committee does note, if you only filled out 7 of them or something like that, are you ready for medicine? Have you really had that abilities and those experiences to be competitive against everybody else? We do not mind the gap year. We do not mind someone taking extra time to get those kind of experience, finishing your undergraduate, experience, and then, I think you might have to get a job for a couple of years, but to go round out yourself. But if you got 15 opportunities, I want you to take 15 opportunities. Pat?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, some applications that had like 3 different, maybe 5 experience from 3 different categories. And I mean, it's like, we were looking for well-rounded applicants. Have you lived? What have you done? So I think it is important so I don't want to see, I have 8 different shadowing experience and you put 8 like different shadowing like that way. Now you might have a couple of shadowing experiences that are very different that you want to separate them out for different reasons, but don't fill it with like, oh, I had 10 shadowing experiences for 3 hours each, and I'm going to put those in each one category. That we'll recognize that. But it is important to try to put your experience. And so I tell applicants, because when I talked with that applicant, I said, well, what else have you done? Have you been involved with your church? Oh yeah, I've done this. That's an experience. You're doing community service, So sometimes they don't recognize that they've done things that they can put down there. And then the other thing I would say is make sure you list 3 meaningful experiences. So I've had some applications that they only listed 1 or 2. And then I talked to them, I go, well, you're telling me these other ones weren't, like, you should be sitting there telling me I couldn't decide which one to make more meaningful because they're all meaningful. If you only give us 1, 2, that means the other ones didn't seem meaningful to you, right? And so how good were those experiences, right? At least if we put 3 down, in our mind, we felt, wow, they must have had a tough decision to get only 3 meaningful experiences when they had probably 10, right? So I think it's a bad look. It's fine if you had, and at least maybe above 10, 11, or it's best to probably fill all 15. And then make sure you write, like fill in. So I've had some of the most meaningful experience was like 3 sentences. Yeah. That's not good either.
Yep. Tell your story.
Tell your story.
Or we give you space, tell your story.
One question is somebody asked, what piece of advice would you give to a reapplicant?
You want to start, Pat, or you want me?
Yeah, I mean, I tell them, when they meet with me, I said, you've already started the fact, so you already told me that you're motivated, right? So it's disappointing because I know all of you have worked really hard, and it's so disappointing. I tell them, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, look in a mirror, decide, is this the path I want to take? And if this is the path you want to take, then roll up your sleeves and do it, right? So I would say get in there, keep doing it. If this is truly what you want to do, really reflect on what you're doing. And if it is exactly, if this is what you want to do, then get it done. Figure out a way to get it done. Get as much feedback as you can from the different schools you applied to. Figure out, what it is, because there's a lot of themes for some schools, but I've met with some applicants that said, oh, well, this school had these that were similar, but they also had these other things that they said. And I said, well, for us, that's not as important, but for other schools, that is important. So that's where you see some differences in schools or what they focus on. So that's why, we write in our letters that we send out to these applicants that, sorry, it was a, good application, just didn't make it in this year. But if you want to meet to talk about it, set up an appointment. Other schools won't do that, but they may provide that feedback if you actually ask. And then some schools will just say no. And that because it's hard. We're a smaller school. We don't have as many applications as Glenn. I mean, I don't know what you got, 4,000, 5,000 or more, whatever you interview. That's a lot to do.
Yeah.
We only interview 200 or so applicants. And so it's a little bit easier for us.
Yeah, we have 6,000 applications for 120 seats. And usually across the country, we bring in 4 times our class size. So you can kind of get a rough estimate of how many people interview. So we're bringing in about 500 to interview. But for this question, we love the reapplicant. About 33% of our class every year are reapplicants. Our admissions committee loves that drive, determination. So own it. If this wasn't your year, you do the reflective work, you saw where the holes were, you go fill those holes, articulate what you've done between that year and last year, so you could show that you are well prepared. And you, like I said, if you got reviews and you got the ideas where you were short, you fill those in and now you're ready. And like I said, our committee applauds that. So good for you.
Yeah, and we like non-trad. So about a third of our class or more is non-trad students, I would say. And we've had students not only late 20s, but 30s, and we've had a few in their 40s. Former lawyers and former professors, so we think they add to the class.
Okay, there are a few questions about the activity section again and how you should talk about the experience. Like, let's say a research project, do you just talk about the scientific process behind it? Or if it's a volunteering experience, do you talk about what you did? Just basically how you would approach that.
Yeah, I could start there. How did you impact? I mean, you could certainly articulate in a sentence or two. Like I said, if it's not the most meaningful, you got less opportunity there. It's probably see what the scripters is, so we could kind of understand what it is, and then how you had an influence in that work. I think is the biggest thing. How you led, how you supported, what the end result. Not that this drug will lead to this, but how it impacted you in your preparation for medicine. So again, you're just looking to build out this well-tell story about us. So we do understand, why did you go into that lab? Why did you kind of do that work, and how it impacted you and how it led you to something else, or how it was able to help you understand or articulate a certain idea. So again, it is short stories format. And like I said, the 3 meaningful can give you the opportunity to really articulate it. But yeah, I think it's that, what it's done and how it's helped you, again, be prepared for medicine. Pat, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so I'll say this, and this will apply for any experience. We use the experiences as one of the tools to determine core competencies or attributes, characteristics. So if you look on the AAMC under their core competencies, I think they have 15, communication skills, intellectual curiosity, things like that. So I would use some of those words to describe, the experiences, because that helps us then easily define that you felt that this is a demonstration of a particular core competency, and so that's some, I think, good sound advice, tricks of the trade. Not that I want you to fool us, but I think if those experiences truly demonstrate a core competency like intellectual curiosity, compassion, or whatever that is, then don't be afraid to kind of squeeze in some of those words, because that that helps lead our nose to say this is about this core competency, this is about this core competency, this experience is demonstrating this core competency. So now don't overuse it, but be judicious about it, but the experiences are what helps us also determine the different attributes and core competencies you have. So
good. Yep.
I have the next one. I'm worried about applying to schools and states that have banned abortion care and are limiting healthcare for trans people. Do you know if medical schools in these states have changed their curriculums at all?
I'll start with that. So, I'm from South Dakota, so it's a conservative state, and the lawmakers have passed some bills and things like that. We are a medical school. That's what we do, and we are still able to do it. So we are going to follow what's the most important and the best practices, and and do our best of that. Does it make it challenging? Yes, but we have a curriculum we need to teach in order to get accredited by the LCME. So that's the board that accredits schools, and that's how we, you know, communicate and interact with our legislatures to say, hey, you know, this is the impact, this is what we need to do, or you're not going to have a medical school in this state, you know. And I think they understand that. Again, I don't want to go too deep, but I mean, we have a duty to teach our medical students to be the best physicians possible, and we're doing it. So I can say that easily. I think, you know.
And all of our school, I mean, you got 2 conservative states tonight, and, you know, we're an affirmative action state. We cannot take race or ethnicity into our admission decision, but we do a lot of things that you know, still helps us understand what that candidate and that journey is. I wouldn't shy away from any state, any school. I think a medical school across the country are all fighting the same kind of fight that's happening out there, that, you know, advocacy and social justice, us adding that to the application is us also raising our hand and saying, this is who we are, what we need. And I love how Pat articulated, we all know what we need to do to educate, and we need to be that, you know, welcoming to all. So I think it's a fight that we're all fighting. So you find the right fit that is for you. Certainly, if you get in multiple schools, then you can start having those conversations even deeper on the type of work they're doing. And maybe you could join, you know, we're right next to a state capitol. So, you know, we're down there. We got a student interest group that's doing a lot of advocacy work. So maybe you could be a part of that, and, you know, and you making an impact, you know, beyond that you ever knew you would walk into medical school, you know, doing.
And I'll add to that. So you mentioned that, because, I've had a conversation with some students about similar type of topics, and I say, you know, yes, it's going to be a challenge here, but we would love to have medical students who are advocating for these things to come help us with this fight or with this argument to do that, right? So coming to our state, you have an opportunity to advocate, to really move the needle, as opposed to going to a state that already doesn't need the needle to be moved. You might have a greater impact in those types of states as an advocacy, and actually build a pretty impressive resume in social justice and advocacy. So that's a challenge I have, you know, that I put back on some of the applicants to say, it's going to be hard. I'm not going to deny it, but you have an opportunity to help us move the needle. And wouldn't that be great? You know, it's different than you go to a state where there's nothing to be done. It's already done, right?
Yep. You
could be a strong advocate and really help move a needle in those states.
Well said, my friend.
Yeah.
Some people say I look at the world as is, and others say I look at the world as I want it to be. So if you want to be an agent of change, which one would you be?
There you go, bud.
Well said.
All right. Someone asked if you could give one piece of advice for non-traditional students to succeed in getting to medical school, what would that be?
Trust yourself. Tell your story, tell your journey. Don't think you have to fit into a certain box of what a medical student looks like, because every medical student looks different. And I think medical schools love to see that non-traditional, that non-normal path, that journey that's been walked, because you define dimensions of diversity in so many ways, and how you shape a class and have it to be a reflection of our community, and know you belong in that community, so you have a voice that belongs. So I would own my journey.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's articulating your journey. I think as a non-trad students, you do have some advantages over students that are not non-trad. I mean, you've lived life. You have a broader range of experiences. You have a certain level of maturity, understanding, probably resiliency built up over the years of navigating life. So those are advantages you have, and what you have to articulate and weave into a story.
Love that.
And how they're going to make you a better physician to help better the health of your community. So make it not about just you. It's going to make me a better physician. Yes, but that way I can help my community.
Mm-hmm.
I have the next question. I've heard that we should shy away from negative experiences with doctors. or critiquing healthcare in our personal statement. But what if this is an important factor on why I want to go to medical school? What is your recommendation or thoughts on this?
You get an idea, Pat? I can see it.
It all depends on how you word it, right? You don't want to come across like you know more than someone who's practiced medicine for 20 years or more, right? And yeah, I mean, you know, you hear stories of bad cases or instances. It happens. Tell the story. I would weave it more as how you know, maybe it motivated you to get into healthcare to try to improve something. But I would.
Oh. Did he freeze for you guys?
He froze for us.
All right. So I'll pick it up till he comes in there as well. Yeah, I'd have it careful as well. Maybe framing it more from an idea of, I hope to come in here and see what I could learn. I've had this kind of life experience. I've had this kind of exposure, and it makes me more curious of who I am and where I want to go. But it's a tough one to own. I like how Pat was starting to build out that with the idea of, you know, you can't tell a group, you know, 21 on my admissions committee that, you know, I know medicine better, you know, or I had a bad experience, you know, maybe articulate it, but it was the reason why it made me lean toward this. So I think that's yeah, something we just need to be a little bit careful with. So Pat's meter ran out.
No, I think he got disconnected, and he said he's going to try to come back on. Somebody asked, so this is a question that I get asked almost every single week. What should I do differently to stand out on my application?
It's back to being you. Just trust yourself, guys. I want the authentic you. We talk so much about that person that's just trying to be that imposter syndrome, that they think they have to be somebody else. Trust your story. And you will be able to, you know, when you're in your interview, you're going to interview better if you're able to talk about your real life experiences, not where you think we want to hear. So that lived experience is by far the best thing you could do. So there's a lot of trust with that, and you have to be a believer in where you are and the steps you want to take. And yes, I mean, like I said, it's 2/3 are getting in, and 3/4 are not, or 3/5 aren't getting in. You know, 20,000 apps, 50,000, well, versus 20,000 seats, 50,000 apps. So it is extremely competitive. That's why that reapplicant, it's okay to be that reapplicant. Again, you're owning that story. And if you really want this, then you are going to continue to fight and challenge and attend events like this tonight and keep gaining information. But just trust your journey all the way through. Pat, sorry we lost you, but glad you're back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but
we weren't liking your answer, so we cut you off, and then I took
okay. I thought it was like a giant cane wheeling, you know, or you
know. He's my bud. Sorry, guys.
All right, probably the last question, but they ask, will the contact person for the experiences be contacted because they only have one supervisor and they don't have access to their information, and how they should approach this issue?
You get what they're asking, Pat?
Yeah. So we don't contact so that's when they put a contact on an experience of someone that was maybe their supervisor or can verify. I mean, we don't go out of a way to contact. I mean, we trust the applicant. Now, if there's something fishy, it's rare, but if we see something kind of fishy, I'll just leave it that way, then we have tried to contact, you know, the contact to try to verify the experience.
Yeah. And we don't at all. I don't think I've ever heard us reach out.
It's rare.
You know, we tell everybody in ours, you know, we ask the admissions committee to only review what we have on that application. We tell them not to go out there and do Google searches on you guys as candidates, or go out and try and verify information. We just all trust within that. If there is something quote unquote fishy, they bring it up to my attention. I could then go look at social media or something like that, or whatever the case might be, and bring it back. I've only had to look twice in 7 years.
Yeah, it's very rare.
Yeah, and I haven't brought anything to the committee. So
this is the question that I'm sure you all have talked about many, many times. What about if you're using ChatGPT for your personal statement and secondaries?
Yeah, I don't know if we've chatted about it much, but it's starting to be part of the real conversation. And the AAMC is doing a lot of work to try and figure out how to figure out who's done that kind of work. I'm not ready for us to walk down that path, or for you guys to get a framework of an answer through these kind of tools. We still want the real you through this. I've had my committee say, I would think this might be. I'm like, nope, we can't go there yet. So we want to trust the work that you're doing. I would trust the work I would do. I think your voice would the authentic you will come through better than some computer writing an answer for you.
So we've had a conversation about this at one of our last meetings, and they are changing the language in the AMCAS application to add some wording about that you will then sign off on, that this work is your work. You are the author of this work and not a virtual thing. Now, it doesn't mean that, you won't use it, but the expectation is that you're not doing it. And if you are doing it, getting caught, then, good luck ever applying to med school again.
Yeah.
Right. So go ahead, take the risk if you like.
Don't. Thank you.
So that's
trust yourself, guys. Trust your students.
Yeah. So trust your ability.
I want the real you. It's better seen. We don't want grammar errors. I agreed with that too. Writing me on my secondary and saying I really look forward to applying to UCLA or that type of stuff. Don't make those mistakes. But I think we see a real authentic person, and we appreciate that.
The next question I got is, how long do you shadow a doctor?
Whatever the time the doctor can give you, right? It's hard getting shadowing experiences. I mean, that's a reality, right? I mean, we have some hospital systems limiting, students to 8 hours a year, maybe, right? So take what you can get. If it's 2 hours, it's 2 hours. If it's, all day, great,
My favorite answer to this one is, however it would take for you to understand that you're going to be spending the next 30 to 40 years of your life and $250,000 to make that decision right for you.
There you go. Yeah.
That's the answer that I always tell people is, if you're an inquisitive person, it may take you 200 hours. If your parents are physicians, then you have a good idea. It may only take you 50 hours. I think it's just whatever time it takes for you to make that determination.
Yeah, sorry, I was understanding the question as, if a physician only had 2 hours for you, would you take the shadowing? I said, take the 2 hours. But yeah, the more shadowing and clinical experiences, I think the better you are prepared that this is really what you want to do.
Yeah, and we don't have quotas, and it's tough. I mean, like I said, I got a double MD parent, and they're right next to a hospital. They could get in a hospital, and I tell the double MD kid, don't be shadowing under your parents. I mean, we'll sniff that out too. But if you're rural and it's harder to get that experience, you only get 60 hours, over this last, year as your junior, we see that, and that's okay. And somebody else, here and, can work at VA and have 300. That 300 could equal 60, just because of the story and the exposure that you had and the opportunity. So, definitely, as Pat was saying, get the experiences where you can, even if it's a few hours here. It might help, again, build out a story where you're going to frame something else within those experience section or in your secondary or, in your own personal statement.
All right. And our question is, what should the letter writers emphasize on while writing the letter that medical schools would like to see or hear about the student?
I can start there again. I want people that know your work. You might be working at Banner University and internal medicine, and you had 20 minutes with the chief resident, but you spent the whole time working with his nurse practitioner. I want the letter from the nurse practitioner, because she's the one that, he's the one that knows your work better than the chief that has a big title, with 6 lines underneath it. So, be sure to find the people that know your work, and articulating the whole person. I mean, certainly the passion to medicine and the drive, but that you're a good colleague. I mean, I heard these in residency, emergency medicine doctors, and they were saying, our final kind of determination, whether we're going to hire this person is whether we like them as a person, and just that type of idea. So find people that know you, that could see your passion and can just articulate it.
Yeah, I don't know if I can add any to that. I mean, you want them to write things that help to, us to better understand your core competence, your level of competency, your attributes, your professionalism, whatever it is. Now, they're not going to see all 15 of the core competencies or things like that. So they should just speak to what they can speak to, and then hopefully provide specific examples that illustrate those attributes, those positive characteristics that we're looking for.
Ready, I got the next one. If you have great clinical LORs and a professor letter, and the school has a limited number of letters accepted, is it recommended to still submit a professor letter instead of a really good clinical letter to check that box off?
I mean, some schools require an academic letter, someone from someone. So you have to, if that's the case, then you have to include it. So again, it's context. I mean, if you're a 4.0 student and have a 515 MCAT, you might not need a letter from a professor because that tells the story, right? Yep. And then maybe you can use the letters for other areas to help maybe demonstrate your compassion or other things. So I think everyone's different. You have to look at your whole application because that's what we're doing,
Yep. And know what they want. Like I said, I have a ran clinical. You better have a clinical in there, or just it's not gonna work. But I love what you said there, Pat.
All right. And our question is, what if I'm a post-bac student with a 4.0 GPA in the program, but my MCAT score is 505? Would you recommend me taking the MCAT again and applying next year?
My quick answer is no. I mean, go do your homework on the schools that are out there, find the ones that are right fit, look at their averages. Thank you. I'm crazy. I've been here 7 years. We started here with a 504 average. We're now 515. We're the 90th percentile. I mean, the dean challenged us to really build these strong academic classes. But guess what? I'm matriculated a 501 to a 526. So you can figure out how to make an average, but we have room across the board for somebody. So that's a strong postback. You're telling a story there. That's, I think, a fair MCAT. Mostly academics, the GPAs and the MCATs. We just want to know we don't have to worry about you academically. That's all we're really trying to figure out, that you could get through medical school on the academic side. Then we go into those experiences. Are you well-rounded? Then I guarantee you the most of us spend the time talking about that cultural fit and finding the people that look like and will be like us and have that area that'll challenge us and just bring something new and dynamic to the. I mean, that's what the enrichment of those admissions committee meetings are all about. So these other areas, I think it's just kind of like, okay, good academics, good experiences. Now let's go find the people that are right for us. Pat, anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, every school is a little bit different. I mean, we're heavy on our mission. So, I mean, our average MCAT score for our school is maybe 507, 508. We've turned down applicants with a 520, 25, for different reasons. We've accepted applicants at 496, because we have our minimum is 496. And, someone with a 505 MCAT that clearly has done a lot of work in a rural area and underserved populations and has the application screams they're going to be in a small town of 10,000 people practicing family medicine in 6 years or 7 years. That's going to be much better than us than someone that is orthopedic surgeon with a 515 and something. Yes, we need orthopedic surgeons because we're only medical school in our state, but we don't need 15 of those in our class, right? And so that's what we look at. We truly do holistic review to do mission fit. And yeah, we still end up with a pretty high, average MCAT score. We're probably 25th nationally, 25th percentile. I mean, like low. But, when we were doing 3-digit step scores, our medical students were scoring 75% of our class was above the 50th percentile. So we make doctors. That's the way we feel. We will get applicants that have a mission that maybe some of the metrics are a little bit lower. We have to be careful, but we feel we can make doctors and try to do our best, so.
You guys do a great job. I think we're working hard to find students that want to be reflections of our community. So this is the work we're all doing.
All right, I got the almost next to the last one. Do you have to tie everything back into medicine when answering a question?
Interesting. I'm wondering.
I would say no. I mean, sometimes you tie it to something related to an attribute, right? Depending on the circumstances, you want to get across that you're a bright intellectual, street smarts, whatever it is, or if you have some other skill, communication skills or whatever, it doesn't have to tie to medicine, but you want it to tie to something that will help you be a better physician, right? Does that make sense? I guess.
I got a good story. I mean, like I said, we had the second look. We have an accepted student right here, right now, and he's working at Verizon, and he was talking about the MD, MBA, and he's getting these valuable leadership skills right now working at Verizon, because he's managing this team of people. And I'm like, that's fabulous. So yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's not, just he's thinking of how he could become a better physician. And maybe I want to be a hospital administrator someday, and, getting corporate experience or working in pharmacy or coming from a different kind of area. Absolutely fine for us. Good question. That's fun.
All right. The last question is, let's say the student has already taken the MCAT, gotten a pretty decent score, like above 517, and they've gotten accepted to a medical school or waitlisted. And in the spring of that year they got accepted, they retake the MCAT. Is that a red flag? Will the school know? They're just doing it because they want to see if they have a higher capacity of scoring.
Don't take the test again. Come on.
517 is not a pretty good score. That's an excellent score.
You're in the 90th, 5th percentile or something like that.
Take the 517 and go on vacation.
Exactly. You're doing great, my friend. Oh my gosh. I wish we all had that problem, Doug.
Yeah.
But that's great. I mean, no, if you already accepted, no, I mean, I don't think we're going to get the update. I mean, it's, maybe something comes through and we'd probably call you and say, what the heck are you doing? But yeah, we'll submit the score, the high score we have in the last, I think, 4-year period for us. But if you're already in, take some time off.